chapter from a journal that he wrote called An Overview of Commercial Filmic Adaptation of Children's Fiction, which is also interesting. There's a reference to a Hornbook article. I'm sure they know Hornbook.
The Hornbook, yeah, they know the Hornbook.
And some other things. And I have found a couple other things, but this came up so suddenly I haven't had time to absorb it all. But I know what I'm going to be reading for the next few days as I'm just reading professional literature for recreational purposes.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic.
It is.
So, is there anything else you'd like to say about the history of the genre of children's novel or book adaptations to film?
Well, I will say this, that a lot of the things that have been adapted and are considered adaptations of children's literature into film weren't really children's literature to begin with.
So give me some examples of some of those
Huckleberry
stories.
Finn. I'm sorry, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Those weren't written for children.
No.
And neither was Alice in Wonderland or Alice Through the Looking Glass. Those weren't originally children's literature. And any number of other things. And of course, Street talks about quite a few of them in his readings. And of course, none of them are coming immediately to mind. But much of the literature, but they were pieces of literature that were moral and family suitable.
Featured young characters.
And so they sort of evolved into this children's literature concept. And, we think, for example, when I think of children's film, I think of Shirley Temple. Well, Shirley Temple's films weren't children's films. They were family entertainment that featured a child, a very talented child, as the principal actress. And because the child was young, we got treatment of a lot of children's stories. So we have Heidi and Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, and we have The Little Princess, which were perhaps read to children, but not necessarily. So
this whole notion of children's films in and of themselves is a relatively new phenomenon. Is that what you're saying?
I think it is, and I think we can definitely trace it to Disney carving out a niche market and marketing specifically for children and family entertainment. And I think it's sort of interesting, as Pauline Kael says in her chapter on children's film in the book Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, that there's like two tiers. For films for children is a ladder with two tiers. All the children are down here on this first rung, not tiers, but rungs. The ladder has two rungs. Children are all down here on the first rung, and adults are up here on the second rung. And that's all the option there is for children down here on this first rung.
Wow.
And it's really wonderful that Pauline Kael says in that book, I can't think of a single good children's picture that intelligent adults can't enjoy.
That's a really significant quote, and I think we could absolutely attribute that quote to children's literature as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, don't you think? I mean, children's literature are just good stories that happen to be either written for children or feature young characters in some way, shape, or form.
Well, that's one of the quotes that Street uses in children's novels and the movies. I can't remember the author's name. Who wrote Watership Down?
John Updike? No,
it wasn't John Updike. But
I should know this.
But the author of Watership Down said, I don't write children's books.
Right.
I write books. If children happen to read them and enjoy them, that's fine.
There you go.
And that direct quote is in this introduction.
Yeah, and I think that's something absolutely to remember when we're dealing with this class in general, is kind of that overarching theme is that good literature is just good literature. No matter what the audience. A kid could pick it up or an adult could pick it up. If they enjoy it, that's great.
Well, that's reminding me of some of the other things that are referenced as children's films, like Ivanhoe or Robin Hood, or even Ben-Hur has been referred to. Yes.
Really?
Well, because it was a moralistic tale that children could learn from.
And it's adventure, and
adventure stories.
Okay. Okay, so before we talk about the prevalence of adapting children's literature into films. I'd like to talk just very briefly about adapting children's films into literature. We do have one particular anomaly that we'd like to discuss.
Yes, and I don't think you didn't know about this until I mentioned it.
No, I did not. I had no idea that this existed. And so Dig introduced me to
The Red Balloon.
The Red Balloon.
Now, I remember The Red Balloon from my childhood.
Yeah, I might be a little too young to remember.
It's been around
yeah.
for a long, long time. It was done about 1956, and it was a short film, about 30 minutes, which is a little long for today's attention spans, but a almost silent film, no dialogue, but a boy's adventure with the Red Balloon who becomes his friend. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful film that then was spun off into this book, which consists of stills from the film and a little storytelling with it. Which I can't think of another title where that has specifically happened. Although in adult entertainment, in films for adult audiences, I have noticed. I remember the falling head over heels in love with the Upstairs Downstairs television series, which was then turned into a series of novels. So there is some history of films being novelized.
Yeah, and in the week that we discussed the business of children's literature, we did specifically talk about media tie-ins, and so that's, from a marketing standpoint, that is becoming more prevalent in both entertainment for adults and entertainment for children, where you have some sort of a film or some sort of a visual medium, and then there's some kind of a novelization that happens. But I think this is a very different.
This is a very different kind of experience.
This is not. They didn't spin the book off to sell more film necessarily.
No.
Or did they?
No, I think
Okay.
that the great response that the film had resulted in a spinning off of the book.
Okay. And we do have at our library here at Arizona State University, we had the book, and then we also, I just want to share that we have the film on VHS tape.
Stone tablet.
AKA Stone Tablet. Antiquated, not quite antiquated, but...
not obsolete yet.
Not obsolete, VHS. And I haven't watched it yet. I do intend to watch it, but I don't have a VCR anymore, so I have to borrow somebody's. So, anyways, that's just something, little side humor.
It's still in distribution, and this is
Yeah.
a good justification for me to go out and
Buy a DVD? Okay.
And by the
that'd be
way,
great.
I do not speak French, but Morrissey, who wrote the book, also did the film, also did another children's film. La Morrissey did another children's film that Pauline Kael says is even better than The Red Balloon. And then The Red Balloon film itself inspired another filmmaker in the last few years to do a film called The Red Balloon, which is not a remake, but a film inspired by The Red Balloon.
Very
so
cool.
children's film can have broad-ranging implications for other artists.
Excellent. All right, let's talk a little bit about, or not a little bit, let's get into the meat of this. The meat. Let's talk about some of the aspects of taking a work of children's or young adult literature